We're also cognizant of the young architects who are coming up in large numbers, they're in the hundreds every year. We're cognizant of this demographic that is rising, and we're feeling structurally something needs to change. We try to leave this environment for those young ones the way it is. Fast forward, the Architects Alliance has held several engagements with several architects. We've done online platforms, several conversations, inward-looking capacity building. We've done outward-looking, where we're trying to raise awareness to Kenyans that we are architects. And we are not just plan drawers, we are a lot more. We're also decision makers, we are critical thinkers, we can participate in the social discourse. So we've had these, and they've been very good engagements. Our social media tells us that we are getting somewhere in this conversation, but a lot of work needs to be done. Now, part of the engagements we've had have driven us to looking at this structural issue, looking at best practice globally, and thinking maybe it's time the architect is governed by himself through an act of parliament. And that's what best practice has shown us. And that is what we are calling you here for. That we can have this conversation and see, is this the best direction we can take? Is the law the right way to go? Is the draft adequate or otherwise? Welcome, Professor. Please welcome. You have just started. Yeah, and you can also just grab a cup of tea as you sit.
I like that bit.
Feel free. You can come and sit on the side so that at least you see. No. Carry the sun. So really, that is the background of why we find ourselves here, and we are grateful that we called you and you make some time. And we are looking forward to a very robust conversation. And I want to just let you know how we are going to run the sessions. We want to make it short and precise so that we give a lot of room to the discussion. I have Architect Kega here. Architect Kega was our moderator in a lot of the conversations we had with the young architects. I just want him to give you a snapshot of what that demographic is going through today. Then I have Architect Kega here who has interacted with the draft architect's bill. You can just highlight the different sections. I know you've probably already gone through it, but it's good to just highlight the different sections and why those sections are important, or rather why we feel there are solutions to some of the challenges that Architect Kega is going to lay out. Then we're going to have Architect Irene who will just take us through the discussion. Let's have an open discussion, let's speak freely. Let this be the guiding, the team that guides really how this conversation should go. And then we shall finish the session with just a quick roundup of what is the direction we should go. I think we can also help you to summarize that part. And Architect Paul Jenia is going to give our vote of thanks. We must give 5 minutes to time so that we can produce. So be the time. So kindly, Architect Kega.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, seniors, colleagues, fellows, and my colleagues. Well, I stand here to just share the conversation that we've been having with architects. We've been engaging architects per se in different fora. We've done webinars, we've done town hall meetings, and there are some things that have been coming over and over again. I remember when I joined uni, where Prof was our chairman. I used to refer to this architect, the big boss, the team leader, the money maker. But unfortunately, the conversation we've been having with our peers in the industry. In fact, one of the reasons even we came together was to have discussions like architects. We've had people, especially our colleagues, even junior, coming up and venting about how they feel that they are not architects as what they perceive themselves to be. So several things have come up. One of the biggest things that came up was the issue of fees. The architects today feel they are broke, and it's a matter of fact, it's true. as juniors, some of them would even say, I chose the path, I went through the course, but at the end of it, I am not earning from what I studied in school. The other thing that they talk about a lot over and over again is the issue of who they are, identity in terms of where they run their projects. We've had, over time, when the profession started, way back, there was only one university of architecture. Then after some time there were 2. Currently there are 5. There are also other degrees that are in the same industry. We have construction project management with the degrees, in landscape architecture, interior design. And in this day and age of information age, AI, our architects feel that their task has been encroached by others. And it has come up in many ways. Encroachment means you have a professional who is doing what is your stuff, and then there's another encroachment from other non-architects, if I can call them that. We have what we call quacks, mean people who are not registered or qualified as architects doing architectural work. We also have other people who are purporting to be other professionals doing work that should be worked with. So we find ourselves having training, having been cut out properly as team leaders in this industry, that our niche has really been encroached. And we've had this discussion going forward. Then we've come to asking ourselves, when the rain started hitting us, we find in many projects, true to us, maybe a lot of us are here, we have a project whereby decisions are made. By the time it's coming to the architect, a lot of decisions have been made. And even as the project goes on, the architect is not really putting what is called pen to paper decision making in a way. So basically, those are the challenges we've been having. And it comes to a lot about our identity. Who are we and how do we do it? Who are we in terms of how are we regulated? How are we described? And we've not had these discussions principally as architects, and that's why the Architects Alliance has been promoting these discussions. And part of the reason we're here this morning with the seniors is to also discuss more about that particular issue that we've had challenges. And with these challenges, whenever we get challenges, we need to adapt, we need to innovate, and we need to overcome. So in this day and age, where we have almost, we're getting up to about 2,000 registered architects soon, coming from the university, 5 of them are shining graduates every year. The discussion, it's time to have that discussion whereby we need to look inward into ourselves and see, is the current, how we operate and how we do our things, is it what we need to do, is it what we are supposed to be doing? Because generally speaking, all conversations we had, no one has come up and said, yes, even we had one with our senior architect, even in the senior, in the big firms, we have a problem where we are not working and having a critical mass to do those huge projects. So we have a lot of things that we need to discuss, right from that technician who feels, yes, I need to be maybe licensed to do projects of a certain magnitude, to that senior architect who will need maybe to some sort of work to do. So thank you very much, and I think those are discussions that we need to have today.
Morning, everyone. Morning. It's not many times when I stand in front of people who know much more than I do. So I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my seniors who you've really walked on your shoulders, stood on your shoulders and to come up to where we are today. So 1934, we get a bill. 1934, keep that in mind. This is when Hitler is getting to become Chancellor of Germany. And this is the time now we're also getting the bill that is currently known as CAP 525. So it incorporates 2 professions, the architects and the quantity surveyors. Senior here just made me understand why we had to have the quantity surveyors. It was primarily due to numbers. And then we get, through the act, somebody who is called an architect, and it becomes a protected name. Protected, today it is no longer, we are getting guys in IT, in fact, more than not, IT professionals are calling themselves architects than we are. Something they call network architects. I don't know what that is. I keep fighting with them. So we find ourselves in the point in time fighting the issues which architect Kega has just elucidated. And we are there with quantity surveyors, yet we have not quite evolved. So what do we decide to do as TA? First of all, we want to align ourselves with best practices across the board, from engineers, lawyers, accountants. These guys have been able to come up with very, very robust bills which govern themselves and which also govern how then they are going to go to the next level. A quick example is our accountants. They started with just a very simple, they're called what? The body is called Ispartacus. But now they went further. They even get themselves an examination body, CASNEP, and they're doing exams for all accountants across the region. And the CPA from CASNEP is recognized internationally, actually. So this is something that we decided we want to do. The engineers, for example, they've incorporated themselves, and they even came up. Right now, engineers are the guys who are running all these roads boards, Kera, Kura, Kenya, yeah? And they are inside there, and it's known. It's just recently when Parliament was trying to bring in that the CEO of those could be somebody else. But the engineers are very strong. They're able to fight those things. Unfortunately, the Kenya Roads Board, unfortunately, fell on the wayside. But then, the engineers have a very, very strong lobby because they are underpinned by a very strong bill. Then the other thing we also wanted to do, we have a cadre. All of us have worked with the technicians in our practices. However long you stayed in practice as a technician, there is no clear framework. Then can you ever become an architect? Even after practicing as a technician for 20 years, 30 years, is there a way then? Then number two, a technician today practices like in the same the Gen Z call it same WhatsApp group with fundis. He's looked at by the current legislation as a quack. He does not have the right to even sign off on a servant's quarter or an askari's or a gatehouse. Yeah? So those are things that we wanted to do. And we fell back, for example, on the issue of technicians. They're very, very recognized. They're recognized very well by the South African, in the South African bill, which actually confers to them a very clear nomenclature. There's a senior architectural technician going back. So what is in the bill? Number one, we look at the formation of something we're calling the Institute of Architects. What does it do? In terms of hierarchy, it is the one that sits on top of these. So it establishes a code of conduct, it registers architects, it holds examinations, it promotes research, and provides a platform for engagement in architectural related issues. One of the things that has happened is that we've been literally missing in action. When they're doing the affordable housing bill, the board does not have a single architect. It is, I don't know whether it's by design or it's by, but we are not in the field where we are the kings of the whole industry. So one of the things which the Institute shall do is promote collaboration with other bodies and regulate architectural design competitions. This is something which has also been, I'm sure all of you have sat in bodies where you're told to come and throw and give your proposal. So what does the institute also do? It will then lead to a formation of an examination board. And we look at this examination board as a distinct body corporate from the institute. Yeah? It will prescribe and regulate the syllabus for exams. It will liaise with Ministry of Education to offer accreditation. I'm happy the professor is here. Right now, you know the problem which engineers had, that some universities started offering engineering courses only for the IEK to come and later say that they were not recognized. So this body will play a very robust role in just in making sure that or anyone who is teaching architecture then has met certain criteria. It will issue certificates to candidates, promote recognition of its exams regionally and internationally, and then support the operation of the institute from its proceeds. This was a very strong point when we sat in front of the budget committee in Parliament. They wanted to know how then we are going to raise our own funds, because one of the things we're scared of is that it's going to become a drain on the exchequer. Then we also there's a formation of a registration committee, again separate from the exam. So the exam runs, so when you pass the exam, you now are handed over to a registration committee, which will now have a registrar of architects. There will be somebody who will be known, who will be signing, and he's the one who will be holding the schedule of the architects who are compliant. So it will monitor compliance, it will prescribe regulations for quality assurance in the profession. It will issue approval for registration and maintain a registrar and issue annual practicing licenses. So that is the registration committee. Then you have a formation of a professional conduct committee. So this one, the institute will have to, what AK does is that it protects architects from the public, but any registration committee, its main role is to protect the public then from any rogue architects. Yeah? So your professional conduct committee will receive complaints of professional conduct. It will conduct inquiries, inspect sites. Now this is a new one. This we borrowed from the Indians and the South Africans, so that we make sure that all our sites are going to be compliant, and also that the sites are being run by people who are registered. So it will have some kind of policing of oversight from, make sure that site safety standards are observed. Order suspension of the registration of members where misconduct has been proved, and then make sure that persons not registered under the Act are identified and defined. Now this is a very important one. Anyone who has been calling themselves architect out there, really, I think the fine is something, it's a slap on the wrist. I think it's something like 5,000 shillings. But this one, what we propose is that you'll be slapped a fine of 1 year? I can't quite remember, but so those are the main things. Now, these people, again, borrowing from best practice, we are looking at them. For example, the person who will be leading the professional conduct committee will be somebody who is of a certain stature, somebody from the College of Fellows, for example. So this is somebody who will be elected. So whenever there's the elections, then this is somebody who will be directly put in by members. Now, the operationalization of the Act. We recognize that indeed there is an Act which is currently in place, but what it does is that it registers both architects and quantity surveyors. So what the bill is going to do, number one, is that it is going to move the architects to another registration regime. And it will leave Borax as is, just to be registration for quality surveyors. It is going to have, the original board will have a 1-year period by which then it will have operationalized everything, and then it will dissolve automatically after 12 months after it has put everything in place. So we have put the membership of this interim committee, which then goes ahead and sets up the rules within that 1 year, and then after which it becomes automatically dissolved. I think I wanted to summarize everything quickly. I think I've done justice to that. I hand over to Irene for the next.
Can keep talking since you.
No. I think I'm saying, yeah. I think if you now make it, you are the one to engage.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, morning, seniors and colleagues. This session will be very intimate and interactive. We have heard from our peers. We have heard from the younger architects, the new gen, next gen, so to call it. But the one thing we haven't done today is that we haven't introduced each other to each other. We may all not know who is in the room. So I'll give an opportunity. I think we'll start. This is clockwise. You know, women have a problem with breaking. We'll start this side. We'll start this side.
Good morning, seniors and my colleagues. My name is Architect Poluchian. Heritage practice, graduated from University of Nairobi. That the able have a prof. I'm also doubling up as a member of Borax Ethics Committee. That is a practice committee. Thank you. And I'm a member of TA.
Thank you.
Architect Ruben Otiso, graduates at University of Nairobi, class of 74. Practice Nairobi, various other things, education space as Chancellor of University. Another university, chairman of the council. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Architect Dennis Sigana, in private practice. I've read I graduated in JQAT. I'm a member of TA as well.
Thank you. Architect Moshi Wetito, class of 97 from JKUAT. Immediate former chairman for the JBCC and in private practice. Okay.
We shall approach you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very Ganesha, architect in private practice, and like many do other things as well.
Philip is my name. I'm an architect. I'm in private practice. So I wear very many hats, but I think of relevance also is that I'm the senior trustee for the East African Institute of Architects. I'm very happy to see Ruben here because if he didn't see it fit to employ me as a second year, to do nothing but just draw lines. He was the architect at the KP and TC. It's important to mention this because some of you see us, but you don't know what the journey has been. So I'm eternally grateful to them. And always, there are a lot of opportunities that is made possible for me to be where I am today. I'm happy to be here. At TA, you know that we've had long conversations about this. I have taken very many points I'm going to raise here. So thanks for the invitation.
Sir?
Morning, everybody. Morning. First, I want to thank the organizers for inviting me. My name is Jerry Magutu.
I'm an educator, trainer, researcher, and practitioner. I practice as ZAP, but ordinarily I teach at the University of Nairobi. Department of Architecture, you find the Department of Architecture and Building Science. Now we divided back to the Department of Architecture. And so I'm very happy to see quite a number of people here that I haven't seen for quite a while. When we talked with Sylvia, we were introducing each other on the phone. And lo and behold, when I came in person, she actually inquired who I was. I thought it should be the other way around because ladies change every day. Either the scent, or even their hairdo, or even the color of the lipstick that they apply. I mean, I'm just being honest. And they look different from the persons that you knew. So I'm happy to see people that I haven't seen for quite a while. Philip, you mentioned about being given an opportunity. We used to hear about the Robin when we were training. By that time, it wasn't many. So we would always hear our household name Robin, go up to the posts. If you want some internship or attachment, you go to him. And there was very magnanimous advance that we just want to go out there so that we tell him why he is. Otherwise, we might be telling others when he's not. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, senior colleagues again. Architect and Alfega here, private practice. Graduated under the good hand of Prof. Next UAN, so preserves actually private practice. Good morning, Architect I'm quite excited to be here. I think amongst friends, teachers, seniors, classmates, students, everyone. And I'm quite flattered for the very senior doesn't know my senior teacher. Thank you very much. I'm in academics and practice, but more importantly, I'm actually doing collaborative work in the regulatory space. I did a very elaborate study on the regulation of built environment professionals for Kenya, but I've done quite a bit of work in that space. So quite happy to be part of this conversation.
Architect Sylvia Kasanga, JQuat class of 2001. 2001, yeah, class of 2001. Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. And I must say, it's been such a challenge converting architects into dispute resolution, and I don't know why. Yet we fit in, so automatically, being team leaders on sites. But I can't get architects to come and read and become arbitrators. And I don't know which language we shall use. We've tried everything, but just for the ones who are in this room, please know we need architect arbitrators. Because that's actually our space. We are seeding. Yeah, we are seeding so much of our own space. But thank you very much for being here today. And I do many other things. I'm in private practice and many other things.
Politician.
That one I didn't want to say.
That's what I'm saying.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, my seniors and my colleagues. Teresa Odula, otherwise Terry Odula. I'm an alumni of JQuat. It's good to see people who have practiced longer than I've been born. So, such a pleasure and an honor. I'm a member of TAA, proud member of TAA, and I'm very, very happy to have you people here. Another seat in the corner there is a relative of mine, so it's good to see him here as well. Pleasure.
Thank you, Terry. So, Irene Abutu is my name. I'm an architect, class of 98. I was 1 year old when Ruben was practicing. But he looks just a few days older than me. You've kept well, sir. I'm a student of, I call him Japunji, Philip Kungu, and Jerry, my boy. Thank you for the guidance through the years. I'm a practicing architect, but more leaning towards interior design. I'm the current chair of the interior design chapter of the Architectural Association of Kenya. I'm also a contractor, and I'm also the favorite niece of Professor Alfredo Mendes.
That is true.
So yeah, now that we know each other, yes, you have heard what the bill contains. Because this morning, what we want to do is to dissect as much as possible the proposals. I know some of the proposals are very radical. Hearing them might just be, you all must be wondering what is wrong with these people. But the truth of the matter is that our space as architects is looking more and more hazy as we go along. We are churning out students from the university, graduates from the university, because by the time they leave the university, they're no longer students, they're graduates. But they're coming into this space that is very, very amorphous, that barely accommodates them, that they have to fight for recognition. The other day, the interior designers and construction project managers, landscape architects, went to the streets because seeking recognition. But as I watched this unfold, because I was part of it, even architects, our own recognition is at stake. Because when you speak to people in the public, they have no idea what we do. Really, when anyone here, I asked Mary, do you know what architects do? They have no idea.
They drove.
Yes, they do, to the best of their knowledge.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
They draw plans.
They draw plans. Actually, they don't even call them plans. They call them maps.
Yeah.
They draw maps. So therein lies the challenge that we have been facing, why we came together as TA, and of course, why we are in the process of working on this bill. Now, this bill is at a very raw stage. What has been highlighted is really just a general overview. We are happy to take feedback. Just because we have a draft does not mean that it is the gospel truth. We don't know everything. And that is the reason why we have come to you as our seniors, as our teachers, because there must be a lot of things that are falling through the cracks in our draft. So we would now like to hear from you what your opinions are about this draft and what would be the best way forward for us collectively as architects. So I will open the floor. And in order of seniority, I will ask our senior.
I'll ask him to speak last. He's the wise one.
He's the wise one. He needs to listen first. So maybe I should start with the youngest, Professor Obed.
I will look at the but I'll take the floor.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think the brief conversation that preceded this basically puts things in context. The 1934 is a long time ago, and the truth of the matter is that our regulations and the Government Act is, and nobody questions it, is obsolete. When we did this idea about regulation of the industry, the issue largely is what you guys are talking about. It is about self-regulation. Professionals, and it's interesting, this was actually funded by the UK government through the BAF business fund. And the idea was how the profession could move towards more self-regulation. Because as it is now, it's quite possible that our regulator might even be something different from a legal perspective. Yes, we decided people to sit there, but technically speaking, we're not self-regulating. We are regulated by the government today. And that is a problem that we have. It's also a problem that medical doctors have. Those are people who lost the profession. That profession, when I checked last, was being run by insurance companies. The fellows who made very good progress and highlighted the lawyers. In fact, they were quite on everybody else's space. Now, to be a president, you might be a lawyer, you're quite to sit in any commission, you have to be a lawyer to do, and they've done a pretty good job at it. Of course, the accountants too. So I think it's actually a timely conversation, and it's a conversation that I don't think anyone disputes. In fact, when we're doing that, we're doing it inside there, and I'm happy that we have a number of members of the College of Fellows in there. The context, though, was a bit different because we're looking at building government professionals. And some of
the regulation that you highlighted, the way we do it in South Africa is that each profession self-regulates or basically have their own independent regulation. Then you have an apex that brings the across, some sort of council that brings the bill of government. Yes, so that is the first point I'd like to make. The second point I want to make, really, if you look at this, I think that is as well as by Michelle and the rest, we have a situation where the regulation is inward. It's about what the qualified architect does. It is not about what everybody else does. So you find 90-something% of building or purporting to be involved in building basically just doing their own things. And there's no law, there's not any punishment as that regard. And those who are practicing, our hands are tied that we can't do anything at all about it. So I keep telling people, it's like, I mean, you're having a qualified surgeon and you're producing a whole lot of regulations on how this person conducts themselves. Meanwhile, you've got plumbers conducting second, and nobody bothers with them because they say, as we don't regulate, our own. So this is one thing that we need to look into directly. Tanzania here, just our neighbors, it's impossible for a clerk to build because the professional has been given powers to actually basically do the policing, what NCA does. And it's impossible. You put a board there, it is in minutes. The information will actually already be in the regulations. And to be arrested is very difficult. Yes, so that's, I think, one thing that we've identified that we need to look at it in a very robust way. What happens to these people? What is the role of the regulator to these non-registered persons? Again, there's a lot of to be gleaned and be learned from the lawyers and again the accountants. I think it is almost impossible to purport to be an accountant around here or a lawyer. But actually, it is quite possible to work as an architect. In fact, the interesting thing is that lately I've been involved in some government projects. And there are clerks working for government, not government. I'm not talking about private sector. The fellow went to check the board whether there is the person, and they're not. And they're working for public works, they're working for State Department of Housing, and so on. And I was there alone asking, who are these people? That is when the people started to give me stories, there was one that really even had no training as a education. And he was working for public works. On a school project was important. I didn't curious. So I think the quack thing is very big deal. To finalize, the other bits that I think, and that's a concern for us, particularly the educators, we have changed our curriculum, and now we have a two-tier degrees system. We have the Bachelor of Architectural Studies and then we have the BAc. The other orphan in the house is the Bachelor of Architectural Studies graduate. In fact, it's even worse than the technician because nobody recognizes this person. Yet we are saying you can actually exit training at the fourth year level with the Bachelor of Architectural Studies. The question is what can you do in the profession, if at all? Because the profession only talks about the BAc graduate with 2 years of training. So as I think about these cadres, I think that's a category that we also need to apply our minds about what exactly can these people do? Because they do have some decent architecture, around 4 years of training is exactly particular. And then the curriculums already are quite clear about this particular aspect. But the regulation and the act does not really recognize the person. So the last point I want to make, I'm not it, is about fees. And I think fees we need to. I'm always very happy because the board gives me all those fees, and when I discuss that with my wife, she jumps up and says, "You're going to be very rich if this is how much you're being paid." And then because nobody pays it, including government.
Especially government.
So I think that there's some ideas in terms of how fees can be enforced, especially now that government forcing us to invoice through a centralized system. We are in this situation where all projects are to be registered with the NCA, so that basically government knows what I'm doing. So thinking really is that can you close that loop so that once a project has been written by MCA, then after that I'm compelled by law to collect the fees that is due to me and also due to Caesar. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I'll just react to the issue that you've raised about regulation, whereby currently a regulator, if you're not on their database and you are running projects, they have no jurisdiction there.
Right.
So I'm in another forum, primarily of interior designers, who are involved. Interior designers have taken over the design build space.
Right.
A lot of them are actually unqualified. They have not stepped into any, they don't have any training, absolutely. And their argument is this: if the NCA is mandated to oversee construction in this country, why can't the NCA regulate the professionals such that if anybody say, we have a code, we have the National Building Code 2024, which will come into force in February. So it's very clear on how construction standards should be in this country. Their argument is this: those are the construction standards. Let everybody build, but they stick to those standards. That's just a thought. And I would be curious.
Thank you. So, I think first of all, you said we are starting from the youngest.
I realize.
For many of my seniors.
I realize. They are
There's one ahead of me.
I'm the most youthful looking.
Because I feel offended. But you're my classmate, I think.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I apologize.
We know because Kega and Oil and me were in the same house. So we know what's going on.
You're all 1 year apart. Yeah. Look, I think it's a good discussion, it's a good forum, and my approach is, I think we want to understand our profession and what it is we're trying to do in this discussion. A lot can be said and we can go on. A lot has already been said. Let me first start by my understanding of TA. When I first met the two ladies, Irene and Sylvia, it was still in the early days of the intern.
Yes.
I want to put an asterisk on that because I'm going to ask you to tell us what exactly is the bill attempting to do. Are we trying to reform, reinvigorate the profession? Are we trying to reform, cast a way forward for the whole sector? Are we trying to repackage the business of architectural practice? Or is it architectural education? Because all of those things have been touched on. All of those things have a consequence on how this discussion goes. When I've read the bill and I've read your memorandum of objects and purposes, some of those things are still not very clear to me. What are you trying to cure? I think we need to be a bit more precise on it, because that sort of precision is what will lead us to a better place. The researchers here will tell you if you get your problem statement wrong, so we need to be clear on what it is we're trying to do and how it is we're trying to do. I would suggest maybe a bit more of a robust, what you've got there as memorandum of objects and purposes. It's a few statements. I think it needs to be a bit more elaborate in terms of what we're trying to do, because then we can plug in. We've touched on the place of BAS graduates, of technologists, of interior designers, and so on and so forth. It's okay, there's precedents elsewhere, there's case studies, there's other societies and other countries in which they tackle these matters. If, as the promoters of this discussion, you could capture some of that in a right concept paper, whatever it is you want to call it, yes, I think it locates us better and it will turn put in links to whatever it is, so that we are precise in terms of what we're trying to do. Many of us here will have served in different bodies, in UIA, in CAA, and so on and so on. So we've got many perspectives, but we need to be clear, what are we trying to fix? I've sat in the NCA board for 6 years, I terminated early last month. So I'm aware of some of the things that happened earlier this year and Occupy NCA. It's all right. Yeah, there was Occupy NCA. They brought the PS down onto the streets. But as you do that, what are you trying to achieve? Was it a fight against the building code or the absence of non-registered professionals in the building code? Because that's a not very difficult matter to resolve, and there's a reason why it is that way. Who is the institute? Are we seeing it as an non-governmental body? Is it to replace Borax? Are we trying to reform Borax? We're producing our own administration body, necessarily modifying Borax. There will be no Borax. There will be BOR, remove the A and something else. It needs to be clear what we're trying to do. What conversations are the QSs having? When we look at, say, construction sector, look at the case of MCA, which is 11 years old maximum. Why was it created? What is it trying to achieve? When you say, Mushiri, you said you want us to inspect sites. My question is, what are we trying to achieve? Me, an architect, go on to Philippine site. To do what in particular? He's already there as an architect. Go on to Ruben Mudiso's site. To do what? Is that another layer? I'm aware that engineers have that provision in their act. What are you going to do on my site? Tell me, because I don't really understand. Remember, I've sat in NCA, I've seen a lot of these things happen. I've sat in Borax again for 6 years, whatever we've been. I think we need to clarify what all those proposals are supposed to achieve or are meant to achieve. A recent public inquiry in the UK, the Grenfell Tower inquiry, a very comprehensive CCR process, has said very many things about construction sector in the UK, and has analyzed very many things in the place of an architect and the failures and so on and so forth, in a way that I wish we had that level of inquiry here, because then it really breaks down the whys and wherefores and how we got it wrong, how they got it wrong, and perhaps, so just a way forward. It's a long report, but there are particular sections of it that would inform what we're trying to do, I think. I can share the executive summary with you. What I'm trying to say is it's important we have this discussion. If you ask me, Borax requires reform. Governance purposes, even philosophical purposes, etc., etc. Is that what we're trying to do? Because then if that's what we're trying to do, then it clarifies, As I said, is the NCA not doing its job? Is that what we're trying to fix? What is our work? What are the other professions in Kenya doing? We talked about lawyers. You've talked about this person called an architect, and he's no longer the big boss and doesn't make money. He's no longer calling the shots. It's politics, it's influence, it's many other things. Is that what this discussion is about? Do we need to reform architectural education so that this person goes out there and in 10 years, 20 years, the architects coming through are in positions to make those bigger decisions? Right now, perhaps we're not trained in that respect. So, I think my key point is let's clarify and state what it is we're trying to do, whether you call it a concept paper, whether you call it an executive summary, so that we are more focused, because there are many touch points that have been mentioned. And there have been other efforts in the past. Omene, you were involved in architects in the built environment bill, yes? There's many precedents. Let's narrow our focus, let's clarify what it is we're trying to do. and wise, because then I think we can feed in and perhaps have a better path. One of the things that I've struggled with when I did the bill is to understand, okay, so how is it different from what we have, apart from creating new organs? Yeah, let me leave it there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Very good insights there. I will give a chance for any reactions or any clarifications. Mushiri or Kega?
I think that is a suggestion.
Yes.
Just allow the people who want to make their comments.
To make their comments first. Thank you.
But otherwise it will drag on beyond.
For much longer than it should.
Yeah.
I think I will come to.
No. He was before me.
He was before you. So we'll come to you.
Actually, third quarter was a year ahead of me.
Okay.
And then we had to go by what we had established at the onset. And I would want us to be consistent. Let me associate myself with sentiments that have already been aired by Professor Metin and Architect Waweru, in the sense that it appears like there's not been a good prima facie case made for the proposed bill. First and foremost, it would have behooved the movers of this to carry out a SWOT analysis of borax and much more specifically the architectural part of it, so that then you begin to see where the shortcomings are and what we need to revamp, given the evolution and changes in society and technological changes that are with us. I just wanted to debunk this notion of saying that the enactment of Cap 525 was in 1934. Now, I want you to liken that to the U.S. Constitution that was written in 1787, ratified in 1788, operationalized in 1789. It still works to this day. There's nothing wrong with it. You can't reinvent the wheel. Now, the changes that we have experienced, especially technological and social, are so that they necessitate specializations, splintering, and even diminishing of roles of what you ordinarily would want now to be reminiscing about the loss of the architect's authority and the lack of understanding, because even politicians talk about the architecture of governance. So if you really want to be holding on to that tutelage and protection of it, it long left the stable. So let's not begin to be so obsessed with defending the indefensible. You would know very well that architecture as a profession was based on privilege, and there was no formal training. People like even Le Corbusier, the maestros that we look up to, they don't go to any formal curriculum institution to learn. Now, with the AI coming and the technology coming, these software programs that we use, whether it is AutoCAD, whether it is ArchiCAD, whether it is the renders that are now proliferate, they have made it so easy for everybody to draw these maps that you alluded to. Did you call them maps?
Yes, maps.
Anybody and everybody can do that. And in fact, when I attended some conference in Kuwait, what is on cards now is that there is not going to be an architect per se. It's going to be somebody who has a menu. And that's the menu you feed into a computer, and it will churn out, akin to any dish that you might want to churn out. You know, you have a menu, you follow those rubrics, and then voila, you will have the dish that you actually desirous of creating. I'm just trying to liken that. So let's not be so reminiscing and so regretting that professions are proliferating and they're changing. Professor Menya did allude to one thing that I saw missing, this vast degree for akin to a clinician, if I like it, of the medical field. we were introducing this person as an in-between because the 6 years became too long, especially after the 844 came into operation. It became too long, and at the end of it, you'll find that somebody walks home without anything, especially if they didn't perform satisfactorily for the award of the degree. And we say, well, let's save it so that we can allow those ones who are really not marathoners to exit and all jump into any other cognate discipline. But lo and behold, people finish a bachelor's degree, a Bachelor of Architectural Studies after 4th year, and they are not really recognized, they don't have a role, they are not going to be able to be perhaps called assistant architect, which is something that I thought the bill should now be cognizant of and begin to bring on board. But you jump and say, we want to recognize technologists. How about these other in between, you know, who is actually a heartbeat away from being an architect? But I just wanted to say that the evolution and the changes that are now with us have necessitated us even to define what an architect is. And even an architect is not an architect per se. There are people now who are going to call themselves interior designers, people are going to call themselves environmental designers, people are going to call themselves acoustic designers, lighting designers, and all these type of things, you know. Even project management, you know. So this is a reality, this is a specialization which leads to division of labor. So some powers are clawed from and some powers are given over to other people. If we can be able to recognize that, I'm sure that this bill will be futuristic and it will be transformative. But much more important is that we need to start from the beginning. We have the borax. What is wrong? What's wrong? And what can be righted so that then we're able to. I quite agree fully that we need to secede. We need not to divorce, but we need to be independent. The jointing of architects and quantity surveyors is a misnomer. It's a misnomer because we are not parts of the same earth. I mean, they are engineers on the other hand. Where are we not brought them in so that then we can have an enactment of parliament that recognizes all those persons that are in the built industry? So, if you looked at the Cap 5 through 4, and you missed out greatly on schedule, the fourth schedule, which is the heartbeat of how much your wife would like to see. You missed out completely. You talked about arbitration, Cecilia. And arbitration is one of the things that perhaps is the way to go now in dispute resolution. So it won't be captured even in this proposed new bill, which then will become an act of parliament and therefore become a law and a regulator consequently. It will be a good thing. So I must allow you that at least we've made a start. That baby step has been made. It's no longer a 1,000-kilometer journey, Chinesely speaking. It's now less by 1 foot or 3 feet, or whatever steps that you've made. So for that, I actually allowed you and pat you on the back. But I would want us to subject this to some rigor, so that we begin to look at the borax as it exists. Is it serving? Is it out of date? Is it not in time? And again, even the rationalization that as architects we need to have our own regulation so that we can be able not to be saddled and or onboarded with other parties that we find a burden or really a difficulty in trying to enforce that regulations that we are actually desirous of achieving. So if we went through with the Cap 5 to 5, we need this that ought not to be completely ignored and all simply assume that it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. We want to look at it and revamp it and maybe take away some of the offending clauses that are there. There are quite a number of offending clauses over there. There are quite a number of things that actually would enable us to have a role such as LSK. I mean, as fellows, we've been talking about instances where LSK seems to have a foothold, a stronghold, and a recognition that surpasses even us and even the AAK. You know, thinking, why can't we be able to have AAK equal or similar to LSK? But now, if we want to have an institute, then it should be like that of engineers. In fact, the case in point is the recently completed case where some graduates of engineering were taken from university to codes because they were not registrable. Right. on account that the training they had received was pseudo. It was not up to scratch. And, you know, I noted that the engineers have a role in sanctioning training at the university.
Yeah.
Correct. We don't. We don't. So why don't we for a leave? Run with speed and ensure that we, engineers, have also a role in churning out these millions of architects. You call them hundreds or drops. That should not scare you. There is enough for all of us. So, I wanted us to begin to look at LSK, begin looking at the accountants, how they regulate themselves, and begin to also look at Borax, the seeding, so that we have quantity surveyors and architects separate entities with self-regulation, with their laws, with their law, the underpinning law, that then begins to regulate them. And then when it comes to now the bill, it's quite a lot of things that I saw. In fact, the first glance, a very casual glance, was presented to me when I was in the rural area, and I couldn't read it on my phone screen, you know, from the coming of age, EV has. But I'm also resisting of putting on. So the only time that I had is when I came to town last night, and I quickly glanced through, and I saw quite a number of things that we need to refine. We need to make less ambiguous so that they're much more clearer and guiding. For example, if you're going to begin proposing a board within an institute that specifically deals with examinations, then you have one for discipline. I mean, you are putting this thing into midstreams, and there will be a tufts of authority and acrimony and you know, confidence, because then the board will say, this is my role. The other one is going to come up for exams, will say, this is my role. The registrar will say, this is my role. You know, these are some of the things that can be taken care of by some courts that can be laid alone, bylaws that can be laid alone, made to operationalize those laws that we have actually skeletonally put. You don't have to be over zealous in wanting to deal with every bit. Leave the board, leave the institutes to also have their own practice, code, bylaws, and all those other things, which then begin to be easily changed and put in place, as opposed to now wanting to make discrete. Discrete is like silos, you know, examiners, registrar, discipline, you know, it will be a bit too complex for us to begin to deal with. So there's quite a lot that we need to look at that. The architecture of that proposed bill needs to be interrogated with the mind. Now allow me to use that so that I can begin to show you. It's no longer crystal for us. It's for all of us. So then again, the other thing is, even in the mission of these registrants, let me call them, you must allude to the fact that you are aware of what training one ought to have to be able to qualify for registration. We do have people who are going to do a BSc in architecture. We do have people who are going to do a BR. We have people who are going to do MR. We have people who are going to go to the former USSR. Yeah? We have people who are going to America. We have people who are going to the Commonwealth nations and institutions of higher learning. You know about that. In the olden times when I grew up, and still growing up, we had doctors going to Russia, and they would come back and they are not registered and they are recognizable. In fact, you are unqualified. Yeah? Even up to these days, we still have those biases and prejudices. You then go to the Commonwealth, yeah, and you come up with a degree from some country that we know no big, and they even requires interpretation of the curriculum or your transcripts. You know, it could be in Chinese, or it could be in some other language other than English. And so we need somebody to translate this so that we equate it with the courses that are considered sufficient and adequate for you to qualify to be dubbed a graduate of architecture, let alone as an architect, because that's another ballgame long after you've been spat out. So these are some of the things, but I want to loudly really, I'm not coming here to dampen your spirits, and just want to encourage you and say, this is the right direction, because given the proliferation, given the changes, given the complexity of architecture, we now need to dismantle it and put it into different pockets, if you like. If I borrow from Adam Smith, the division of labor, yeah, so that then you become more efficient. Otherwise, even doctors, let's borrow it from there. There are now people who are going to be dealing with the nose alone, the eyes alone, the ear alone, ENT. There are those who are actually going to deal with your stomach. And there are those who are going to deal with all the different organs that constitute us as a machine, That is the nature of society and progress. We can no longer hold that an architect is a jack of all trade and a master of none. No. We are beginning to debunk that notion and move away from that generalization into now specialization for efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My takeaway from Rob's very good submission is that drafters of the book, give me supplementary mefata. Come back for summer school, as we used to call it. I will now ask Senior.
Okay. Yeah, it's always difficult to speak last, but when you are considered the senior ones, wisdom requires that you speak very few. That's why I request the sum it up for us. I think for me first is to explain a little bit of the background that I have in the TA. They invited me here when they were just about to set up and asked me to come for with them.
And it was actually right here in this building.
That's right, yeah. And I remember the conversation I went and how the telemedicine is being formed. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I told them, if you're going to be in this space, then you must ask yourself some fundamental questions. What is it that you want to do that somebody else is not doing? That's number one. Number two, how do you want to do it in a different way from the other people who are doing it? Right? And of course, those were the important questions for them. Either you're going to do the same thing differently or you're going to do something totally different, so that you justify your existence. But that is what has brought us to where we are today. So when I heard about this, I didn't even know initially that it was TA that was behind this. But when I initially heard about this, and I was called by our friends in KK, I said, well, I don't know about this. I remember they called I called the recipient. They were gracious enough to send me the copies and had a look at them. Just a couple of things. We were told in the introduction that this is about peace, it's about identity, even the encroachment of others in the tech stuff, the challenges that come in the times, so that we need to change, we need to adapt, we need to innovate. So the question that I'm asking this in sort of rhetorical questions, because then they'll get you thinking. And then I'll suggest what I think we need to do in the end. So the question, like I think Adeja was asking here, what really is driving this agenda? That's the question that was anybody who wants to introduce a bill for legislation, that is always the fundamental question. What is it that is driving this? And there are two things. You either want to close a policy gap, or you want to cure mischief. There's no purpose for any legislation, any policy. Those normally are the two fundamental things. So I ask myself, is it an issue of identity of the architect? Is it about representation? Is it about the architect's place vis-a-vis the other professions? Is it a selfish interest that talks about fees or other interests that architects may have? Is it meant to satisfy a bigger agenda? And in a very good sense of the partners, big agenda, greater than us, a greater good. So when we have all done this, and this is registered, the bill is passed as an act of parliament, will the architects emerge better placed? That's a question we must ask. will we be more empowered to do our work? These are fundamental questions we must be asking as we develop this policy. And then also, what will happen to the goodwill that has been built over very many years with other partner professions? You can't ignore that. The fact that we are existing as AAK with all this, and there are so many good things historically over time that have shown for us to do that. But there also comes a time, because of growth and other things, somebody feels that they're enough to go and set up their own homestead. It's a natural sort of thing that it happens to us. The other thing that you must ask yourself is the timing correct? Is this the right time? I think Professor Magutu alluded to that. And the question is, there are other players, as I've said, how do they feel about this? You can say you don't care, it is your own initiative, but in my own assessment, that would be foolhardy to do things like that. You can't ignore others who are in the same space. Like if you go out to a dance and you want to dance, you can't ignore the other dancers on the floor. They might just be able to dance better than you. Yeah. So you have to ask the other players, will they support the bill for the greater good of architects? We don't just oppose because it is coming from a rival organization, but what we want is that we need to benefit from this. So the bill, of course, talks about all those issues about the Institute of Architects, and I want to make a confession here that in the early, I think Ruben will remember this, in the early 90s, there was a similar attempt by none other than architect Tuesday Bishop. We wanted to, I don't know what happened to it, but we actually were setting up Kenya Institute of Architects here. I remember very well.
Actually, is he online? He had requested.
We were trying to set up this for very much the same reasons. Maybe the timing was not right, but the idea and the deed still exists until today. So these are important issues. The bill I see addresses issues of the functions and powers of the institute, obviously. Exams and registration. It addresses issues of research, validation, accreditation of architectural education courses, and also the issue of regulation. So, if you look at it, because there is an existing legislation, what does it say? I haven't gone through all the details. I've tried to look for it with the rest here, and I think we couldn't see it. You must declare your intention. Is your intention to repeal the fourth schedule of the CAP 525? And if that, because you must state that from the beginning. I personally have been involved actually in writing, I think, 2 bills that I worked with a lot of people in committees, but you must declare this. So if the intention is to repeal the fourth schedule of CAP 525, there are ramifications. How do we deal with those ramifications? And in this bill, I haven't seen it, at the end you must have transitional clauses that explains what happens in the interim as you sort of shift. So the how is a big question. Unfortunately, it has to be done through a political process because that's how we enact legislation. So if you are looking at the process, then the question must be, how do you bring in the stakeholders? Who are they? For lack of a better word, if you want to talk about public participation. And what about the legal processes to legislation? What about the political goodwill? You are going to deal with politicians because this is their responsibility and the Constitution to enact laws. They must have a buy-in, and you know what that buy-in means. It can be a protracted process that can take a very, very long time, and you must be prepared for it. So that is a space we must get into, whether we are TAA, whether we are AK, because our interest is the architects. That is the space we must get into, and we must lobby and lobby hard. And there are a lot of questions that are going to be asked. Forget even about our own internal things that we have to do here. So, strategy and tact, for me, at this stage, is much more important than the draft bill. Strategy, tact, and goodwill. Most important for me at this stage than this, because as it is now, it is leaving out critical players, even from this point of information. You heard what Professor Magutu said. He just looked at it over his phone. I have barely made it. So there's a lot of work to be done there. So what am I saying? I think it's good that we should go this way, because obviously as architects we can't sit back when we have all these challenges, and we must see ways in which, one, we try and protect the profession, but at the same time also change to go with the time so that we can respond, because we are not operating in a vacuum. But how we do it is more important. Because of the vested interests, I would say this, that perhaps we look for goodwill in either the political class or the government, because the government holds the barracks, which is critical in this thing, to facilitate a national conversation on this. And I don't want us, I'm not talking about the, what do we call it, this appearing before a Senate committee, and that's not my way. I want us to work. We are going to have 2, 3, 4 day workshop where we sit and we come through these things and we answer all these fundamental questions, and then this forms the basis of doing the bill. So we must look for that. If we don't have that conversation, I think there are several dangers. You leave out the critical stakeholders because they don't know and they've not been afforded an opportunity to do this. And we might miss an opportunity to do something that is really, really good for us, so that in the end we achieve what the objectives as your passion, what the main objective of this is. There are very many things that we can say, but I think strategy and tact must take. And if I were you, I would ask the promoter of this to go a little slowly to allow us to have this internal conversation, because they are important. They are going to determine the quality of the product. Yeah. I probably have very many things to say, but I think I'd like to leave it there.
You will say all of it at once.
Thank you.
You mentioned Dr. Chisdekishuki. I don't know whether we have any, you have requested to be online together with Shamla Fernandez and also Gune. Is Shamla still there? She's dropped off. Okay. So I will then, before we move on to our guest of honor, I wanted to ambush you, but please take the opportunity to give your views.
Just let me log off first. I can engage.
Karibu sana. Right, okay. So you'll introduce yourself and give your views quickly. We were, just to give you a recap, we were doing a round the room of views to be heard. So maybe you quickly introduce yourself, and then we ask our other guest to introduce himself as well. You quickly speak, and then we ask our senior to give his views as well. But make it very brief.
Yeah, thank you. Architect, yeah, sorry I'm late to be here physically, but I was in the meeting from the onset, online, and I've had all the comments. I've also partially been involved with the processes that are being discussed here. I join myself with all the other sentiments that have been shared here, but I think the gist of it has been discussed. It's who are we? Where are we? Are we in the right place so that we can see the future? Where are we supposed to be in 2060? And I've said it in other fora that for us, it's a legacy issue. Probably whatever we are discussing or whatever that is being proposed here is not for us. Most of us probably will not live to see the fruits of what is being discussed. So it's a legacy issue looking into the future. And I think it behoves us, for those of us who have been involved, and I had a few of us who have been involved in the AAK, Borax, and all the reforms that have been attempted. To a large extent, most of the reforms have been attempts. None of them to date, whether it's the review of CAP 525,
and even the attempts to create organs to try and regulate the industry, whether we are establishing, those of us who were there when we were discussing the establishment of the Nairobi Metropolitan Authority, which unfortunately...
Before you go too deep into that, I will come back to you.
Yeah.
You will introduce yourself, please.
Okay. Once again, apologies. I was calling on my excited to be here. Names are Martin Mugai. I'm with a company called Rihanna. It's a consultant. We work with architects in the design and build space in relevance to security, incorporating security in the design across the world.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. I will give you the floor. The reason being, I've looked at the time. Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. I think time is right for a relook at CA 525. In 1931, the UK enacted the registration board. In 1931, 1934 is when we had a 525. You can see the closeness of the two. In 1997, UK amended the made serious amendments to their first registration act of 1991. And now they are operating on the 1987 statute. And I want to be clear. There's the government-owned body, the registration. Then there's the welfare. That's the AAK, and in the case of UK, there's RIB. The two complement one another. And at registration, we are all equal. You cannot start ranking people at registration, say they are senior than others or anything like that. You are equal at registration. Is that the welfare where you rank people, your fellows, and so on and so forth. So let's be clear about that. From my experience as in practice, because I practice in the continent, and my experience at the International Union of Architects, where I served up to the position of Vice President, and Philip, whom at that time was serving as President of CA. Affiliations to international bodies is not by boards of registration, it's by institutes. It's by institutes. So there is the discussion between the institutes and the body that registers. When you are talking to, from Kenya, if you go this way, and when we start here first, I engaged my colleagues out here, wondering where is this one coming from? And that's a question that Philip whom was raising. What mischief are we trying to address? I think it's very critical, very important. I asked that question. I also wondered, what is the climate at the National Assembly? Because you can take your document out there, and when it is being dealt with, it is actually adulterated. You know, it's diluted, and so on and so forth. So one has to be very careful. Suppose one gets to 525 and expand anything that's talking about code survey, and we just look at it and you know that and ask ourselves, are we satisfied? Is there anything else that we want to do? That's an issue. If one is talking about best practices, I think some of the best practices, of course, are UK practices. The US, where the Institute of American, the American Institute of Architects is an institute. It's an institute. Registration at state level is a different matter. Registration at state level, so that you can practice in that state. Okay? But institute is a welfare organization that relates with RIBA, with AAK, with South African Institute of Architects, ETC, Indian Institute of Architects, ETC. Japan has some of the best practices. I see in this document, there's an attempt to bring in technicians. It's a good thing. But Japan does it very, very well. They are what we call the Seikei. And that route, which is from craftsman, can get you to their level. That's how people like Professor Tadawado got into the institute. He's a professor. He has never been to a university. He has not trained. He hasn't gone to a university. That's Tadawado. And this is in recognition of the fact that there are people who are technically oriented, so technical that, and we find them. They come into our offices, and you ask them, where did you get this one from? They tell you that they picked it. But in order that we promote and advance knowledge at craftsmanship level, at the theaters that we have got, you may find that what we are trying to do is that it serves well. But it must provide an avenue to get into the top. It doesn't matter how long it takes, because for those who seek that route, they take longer time. You will find that somebody to be an accomplished Seikei in Japan, they'll be at about age 50, while those who are going to university at age 24, they are already there. So it's critical, it's very important. Japan. I'm familiar with the South African issues because I have an office there. Spain does it better, I think, than most other, in fact, nearly all countries. They do not only, they don't just protect the title architect, they protect the work. They define the work, they say that this is work which can only be done by architects. They define the work in Spain to the extent that even up to designing portrait facility or daily facility, that's the architect only. You can't just do it from out there. It's defined to embrace all that. So clearly, one has to seek, to understand what they are trying to do. Singapore, Malaysia, in all those places, they will have the registration and they will have the institute. I find in this document an attempt to want to mix institute affairs and registration. For instance, when you look at what they're calling the functions of the institute, serious problems with that word, because when Kenyan architects meet Nigerian architects, the Nigerians will be saying, I am registered, or I belong to the Nigerian Institute of Architects. And that's the institute, it's not the board. Singapore will be saying Singapore Institute of Architects. Malaysia, they will be speaking about the same, but then we'll be seeing the board separate out there. So out here, I find one of the responsibilities or functions is to publish books and periodicals. That's an institute affair. The English have a say, Why bark? Why keep a dog if you can bark? Why are we trying to get to the dog area, trying to do dog work, when we already are keeping the dog? We are barking when we are keeping the dog. So it's very, very important that we distinguish this. This area of network with local, regional, international, that's an institute matter. It's not a board matter. Remember, your board belongs to the minister. It's yours, yes, but it belongs to the minister. That's why when you talk about numbers, who composes this institute, we are talking about people that are coming on board through the principal secretary or minister responsible for public works and things like that. The board, this thing belongs to government. It's the government trying to regulate, to protect its citizens against the parks and through people who are watering. In the case of the UK document, current document, is a registration board, architects are registered to ARB, and then inside there is a council. The council is the one that conducts exams and things like that. Okay? Out here, we are saying a committee. My friend's son out here, I went to school with his father. I was in Form 6 when I was in Form 5. So when you talk about a committee, let's get titles that are more dignified. I think that council dignified. Say I went through the committee, something like I had to So let's get to see how the organogram or the arrangement of people there. But I didn't say that. I'm saying that this is long overdue. Some of us will not practice under this dispensation because today, I'm moving rooms in floor number 7. Today. Unless one is very, very talented, like some of the mega practitioners we have in the world now, who are retiring from the profession, not retiring, dying by the profession, about 90 years old, Nehemiah, exiting the scene at 94, still practicing. I found him in Brazil years ago, still practicing at that time when he was 90. Some of us who exit the scene a little bit earlier, much earlier than that. So we will not practice under this dispensation. But it is our responsibility. It is my responsibility to ensure that those who come after me, those who practice the profession in an atmosphere and arrangement that is fun, that is enjoyable, and I have a granddaughter who is studying architecture now, and I want her to practice architecture in an environment that is just right and comparable to international, at international level. So I don't say that. I ask, like Philip from there, what mischief are we trying to address? And the mischief to me is that for a long time, we have carried the conservators on our back at the barracks for needlessly long time. And we need We need, and probably even themselves, they are tired of being shadowed and carried on other people's back. So it's good time. The timing is good. And while at this, we are to sanitize. So it's no serious sanitation to ensure that things that we want addressed are actually addressed. I disagree with Michelle out here because he spoke about borrowing from the Indian scene. The Indian scene is familiar with it. Is a mixed group. Their institute is a mixed group because the registration board lacks. It's not there, you know. They operate under the institute and they are allowed to do that. I think those we have to benchmark with are the ones that I've talked about, and I've talked about the UK, I've talked about the US, I've talked about Singapore, Malaysia, and these are former or persons who are under our Commonwealth, are part of Commonwealth, because we share a heritage, even the language itself. But India is a little bit off. India is a little bit off, and Pakistan is a little bit off. But if you are talking about Malaysia, if you are talking about Singapore, I can understand. The case of Nigeria, because they have their board, and their board is, is clear. And I think even with all their confusion in Nigeria, if you pick the Nigerian Board of Registration and Nigerian Institute and look at their documents, you find that there's quite a lot that we can appropriate. Okay, so I fully agree with what's going on here, and I wonder once again, why do you want to buy? Why do you want to inspect sites? How much do you need? The resources that you need to inspect sites. Why don't you just require in the document that those who are practicing, those who are registered, indemnify the board, and they serve the board, they give to the board a statement of facts about their sites, and you hold them to account that should anything be found wanting at their sites, because they're given, look at all government statements, including the application form that one fills to get registered. At the bottom, and that's with all government documents, there is a declaration that everything I've said above, okay, is good. So why not require architects to do something like that about their sites? That everything that I've said about these sites is correct, because when it's found out to be correct, that's uttering a false document. Actually, you can be seriously prosecuted for uttering a false document. So let's not get to backing up. This is the dog's work. NCA can go inspecting. If in the mind of those at the registration body, they receive information, and in fact the current provisions are that way, that the board can initiate an inquiry about a registered person upon receipt of a complaint, or on their own, their own initiative. So on your own initiative, discover, get information that something bad is happening at that site. That is a site that you go to, but it can be that you want to go to every site. Some years ago, when NEMA came into place, I was asked, together with others, we were retained by UNDP and the government of Kenya to operationalize. And I was the one who defined the living environment because I was the only architect in that operationalization team. And we wonder, will NEMA be able to visit every site? Visit every site in Nairobi? It is nearly impossible. You go in that other route, and that's what we recommended, that it get people to indemnify NEMA, that you have done it, you have done it well, and in the event that NEMA plans that something sinister is taking place at place, then they can visit, but not visiting all the sites. It becomes, in fact, they will become an employing, they will employ so many people, and they will be like that, our company, in a country that I will not name, who are generating more employment than power. So, clearly, we need to be careful about what we want. Do it at a minimalistic level and very effectively. So we are together in this. Remember what I said about the Spanish scenario, where they do not just protect the name or the title of architect, they protect the work. They define works that are to be done by architects. Thank you.
I will acknowledge again the fact that he is moving loose on the 7th. Thank you very much for sharing your day. This is a very special day. For actually making time to be with us on such an important day of the month. Asante sana. So, because he needs to leave, I think, yes, just to wrap up quickly, I think where we are right now is we are all in agreement that we need to have a workshop to dissect this document further. It belongs to all of us, Prof. you included. I mean, there are very, very valuable insights that have come through, and I think our takeaway today is that you've given us the responsibility to organize for a workshop where we will have a little bit more time to be able to. Cynthia, you said 3 or 4 days?
At least 2 or 3 days.
At least 2 or 3 days.
Because this is serious work.
Yes, indeed it is. Indeed it is. So I think you will leave that to us. We will treat these documents as very raw as it is. And like you advised, we advise whoever's pushing the bill for us to slow down a little so that we can get things right. There is nothing worse than getting something wrong and pushing it forward. So that will be my takeaway from the discussions we've had so far. Quickly, Paul, you give the vote of thanks so that we can release those who are running, and then the rest of us can remain and finish up whatever discussions are in advance.
Thank you, Eileen. Mine is very simple. This session has reminded me of the early years at ADD, where we sketch and we were told by the Bible lecturers that if you want to see your work, pin it up and step aside, then you see your line going like this. If you can't see that, then your colleagues will point. So we've been engaged in this, so I know some things have dropped, but as we say, it's the first step we've made. We started the discussion. We want to thank you seniors so much for getting the time. As they say, what seniors can see when they're seated, we can't see when they're standing. So thank for the invaluable input. And I know we'll engage you, we'll try to draw from your well again. I hope you don't get tired of us calling you. I also want to thank our hosts who are here, News Page, they've enabled us to have this session this morning, and our hosts, Space and Style. Thank you very much, we'll come back again. I want to thank also the TA ESCO. I think the number of hours we put in to come up with this draft to start the discussion. As was said by, I think, one of the seniors, it's a first step. The journey of 1,000 miles or 1,000,000 miles we've taken one step or 1 mile. So they will start learning. So for everybody, I think we'll disperse. Thank you very much, and I hope we see you again as we carry on the discussion. All the points are noted. Wanamshiri, I think we stepped back. We filled up. Now we can see we divided, Professor Mabutu remembers we used to draw lines, and then we step back and then that line is going down. Yeah, thank you very much.
As we marked and found the sea.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
On a light note, there is also a variation of what you have just said. In Kenyan context, there are some things people can see when they're drunk that some of us can see.
In other words, it's defining the venue.
No. It's not what they see, it's what they say. Because they have courage now.
Yeah.
False courage.
Thank you very much.
And this gentleman over here. This is my neighbor.
Oh, your neighbor?
Yes, that's very valuable. I hope you'll come again and you'll call you.
No, you say you will come again.
You will come again. You are commanded to come again.
So, Asante. What was Let's have a huddle, brief huddle, so that we can define where we are. Not even, what about we need to put our heads together? We need to put our heads together in English. Ours were lying.
I see what we're like. No.
Zoom is on check.
Somebody's taking a photo.
Nani airport?
Let's see what the guests. So let's have a quick 5 minutes. Wewe sasa wewe unakuja sana.